Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeff Malinoff, and with me is not Mark Souza. He's actually sick today, so we will see him tomorrow, though, if you want to tune into our sports, football, or soccer podcasts that are going to happen tomorrow. But going into today's baseball podcast, we have Bryce Harper talk still, because we're still waiting on these offers coming in for Harper, where he's going to end up. There's still been multiple meetings with him. We'll talk about that. Machado got an 8-year offer from Chicago White Sox. We'll get more on that later. And also Hall of Fame voting. Public voting has come in, last updated on the 14th. So we'll talk about that also as well. And then someone's gotten, there's been multiple unanimous votes from the looks of things, or one unanimous vote from the looks of things. But let's get into Bryce Harper first. It looks like the Phillies are the most, what's the word I'm going to use, the most persistent in signing Harper. They already signed a shortstop, so they're kind of hesitant on getting Machado. But I think the fact is, when you're looking at who Harper's going to go to, it looks like he's going to stay in the NL East, because the Phillies are in the NL East, and also they've kind of been... They played against him. They know what he's capable of. They've seen they basically played most of him throughout his career at least. And the fact remains, even though the Nationals are supposed still in the running to sign him, because apparently they're meeting well out too, we still don't know exactly. We don't even know offers. We don't know anything about the Harper deals as of right now, as of January 16th. And it's been since roughly November. It's been a long time since we've heard anything about where Harper's going to end up, and no official deals have been offered as of yet. And that's, well, now like we talked about this on the baseball podcast, how slow-paced the free agency market is in baseball. And it's almost a little frustrating, because of the fact, like, if we all knew where Harper will end up, if we all knew the offers, then we would talk about, okay, how can he improve this? How can he improve that? Is the team is going to be championship contenders? If he stays with the Nationals, are they still going to be championship contenders? Excuse me. And you look at all that, and he is a factor. He is an X factor with every team. So we still have no idea, but we do know he won't be going to the Chicago Cubs. They have announced they have no chance in signing him, so he won't be going to the Chicago Cubs. But it looks like, from my perspective, it looks like the only two that are having a legit chance to sign Harper are the Washington Nationals re-signing him, and the Philadelphia Phillies signing him to a massive deal. Now, I don't know what you do or what you offer. Like, there's talk $400 million or $350 or however it's gonna happen, but it's just a interesting factor to look on. We were talking about how the Dodgers might pick up Harper, and Mark said on the previous podcast how he was very confident in the Dodgers taking Bryce Harper, but from what has happened over the past week or so, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. It doesn't look like he's going to Los Angeles. But, anything can still happen. Harper can end up back with the Nationals. Who knows? But the question is, to me, is like, is he going to get more money than Machado? I believe he will. But, like, we still haven't heard anything about Machado's deal with the Chicago White Sox. We'll get on more of that in the next segment. But would Harper's one of the biggest commodities coming into free agency in a long time. Same with Machado. And the fact of the matter is, whoever signs these two, and there was even thoughts of the Phillies signing both Machado and Harper. It doesn't look like it's going to happen now, but they are going to be a huge difference maker in the basically who World Series favorites. And it looks like Harper's destined to stay in the NL East, and he'll face the Washington Nationals a lot, and that'll be a much interesting story throughout the season. But there was so much talk of him going to the Giants or the Dodgers or anyone on the West Coast. Mostly, we all kind of knew he was going to stay in the National League from the looks of things. I mean, I think the White Sox were the most favorite to get them from an American League standpoint. But it is one of those things in where who really knows? I don't think Bryce Harper really even knows where he's going to end up. I mean, if whatever he signs, and however much money, probably $350. That's my estimate. That's my guess. $350 million. But I can say up to $375 or even $400. But which is insane money to think about. That's kind of why Kyler Murray was thinking about going to baseball, because of how much money you can make in baseball. But you got to be all-star franchise player level, and that's why he's hesitant. Kyler Murray is to go to baseball because of the fact that he might not be that level. He might not. He's looking at Harper's deal probably and thinking, "Wow, I could get up to $400 million in a contract." But you can't compare yourself to Bryce Harper. Sorry, but over the course of this whole process, who knows where when spring training comes along? Who knows where Bryce Harper's going? I honestly, if I had to make a guess, he's probably going to the Phillies, but it's so hard to tell right now because we don't have any explanations. We don't have any news. We don't have any word from Bryce Harper or his agent or any of the other teams. They really like to keep their free agency quiet, their free agency moves, that is, quiet until they have a 100% certainty that they have the guy, which makes sense. There's been times where teams think they have a guy and then he backs out last second. We've seen it all happen before, not just in the MLB, in NFL, just any other league you can think of. But sometimes it's like, when is it time to throw the offer at? You said you had the Phillies organization said they had a great conversation with Harper when they went to Las Vegas to visit him. When is it time to release, like, okay, we offered him something? Because there hasn't been anything about releasing an offer to Harper. Is it time to pull the trigger? Is it time to say, you know what, we just got to offer him this and hope for the best? Because, like I said, this has been 3-4 months of watching Harper find out where he's going to go, and we haven't heard a thing from Harper. We haven't heard a thing. It's just the most news we've gotten is the Machado offer from the White Sox, which, like I said, we'll get into more to later. But the fact is, Harper has been quiet as a mouse throughout this entire process. We've known he's talked to teams. We've known this and that. But the fact is, we have no clue where he wants to go. We have no clue where he thinks he wants to end up. Because he would sign already. I don't think he even, like I said, I don't think he even knows where he wants to go, because if he did, he would already ask for an offer and he would already sign with that team by now. And I don't know if he's thinking World Series ambitions and that's what is leading him towards one team or another, or it's just money. But I don't know. It's almost like the Phillies. It feels like the Phillies are already like envisioning themselves signing Harper. It's almost like a done deal to them, it feels like, because of their quote-unquote great conversation they had in Las Vegas with Harper. But, man, I have zero clue what's going to happen. And I think a lot of people don't either. And the Phillies are trying to also get, like, Craig Kimbrell and make this, like, big, more big signings than just Harper. But for the front runners, it's still Phillies for Bryce Harper. But with the White Sox contract for Machado, it's probably upward to $250 million, which is kind of low, in my opinion, for what everyone's thinking. So I'm expecting that to be much higher. And, well, like I said, we'll talk more about Machado later, but I'm getting off track. Harper is getting at least $325. I mean, Stanton's getting, what, $325, $325 around there for the Yankees, which is why I'm very hesitant to say they're going to get Machado or Harper because they're already spending a ton on Stanton. They could afford another one for sure, but Judge, when his rookie contract is up, he's going to be asking for a lot of money too. And luxury tax is going to go through the roof if they have both Harper on a new contract, Stanton on his $325 million contract, and Judge on a possibly $350 million contract. You'll have at least three guys with $300 million contracts, up close to $1 billion basically on three players. Because once you add it, it's like close to $900 million, maybe up to even $1 billion, which is absurd for there's three players. So you obviously can't do that because if the Yankees do go and try to get Harper and they do sign him, I think they got to get rid of Judge or Stanton. They got to get rid of one of those two because when Judge's contract, like I said, is up, he's going to be a huge commodity and they got to offer him something big. So they are, I feel like, in a bind with the Stanton contract at the moment. The Yankees are, at least. So Harper's best move is probably going to Philly, just to the fact that they're going to offer the most. I feel like the Phillies are going to offer the most, and he's going to stay in the NL East, and he's going to play for them. That's my guess. But he is still in talks with the Nationals. He's still in talks of maybe going back to them. Right now, those are the two teams that I see best landing Harper, and that's, like I've said before, the Nationals and Phillies are still looking like a strong case. It's going to be like, I feel like you should just sit them both down and have like that auction, starting at $200 million going once, and then just keep doing like at an auction bid and just have them say how high they will go up. At the most, I see Harper getting, even though it sounds absurd, I see him getting up to $400 million. Because I feel like this is going to lead to a bidding war between the Phillies and the Nationals, and it's going to get up there pretty darn high. One's going to say 300, the other one's going to say 320, the other one's going to say 350, and the other one's going to say 375, and go up and up and up and up until I think 400 is going to be the limit for these guys, and then Harper's going to have to make a choice. Maybe that's what Harper's plan is all along, thinking maybe if I hold out long enough, I'll get up to $400 million. But I don't think it's going to be that high. I say the highest, I could see him getting up to $400 million, like I said, no doubt about it. But thinking of being a realist here, I'm thinking 375 is the max they're going to go. Each team, that is. And you look at that, and that's still a lot of money, of course, but Bryce Harper is one of the best free agents coming out in quite some time. I can't think of a last guy that have this much buzz around just two players in free agency. Usually it's just like, oh, they signed them. Oh, they signed this guy. Oh, they signed this guy. Now it's like we're on Harper watch and we're on Machado watch and we don't know what's going to go down. But all due respect to Manny Machado, I think Bryce Harper is looked at way more highly than Machado is, just for the fact that he's just been one of the best players in the MLB, hitting-wise mostly, and one of the most recognizable faces in baseball. So not only do you get Harper, you get his jersey sales. You get his face on billboards in your town. If he's in Philadelphia, he's got to face billboards all over Philadelphia, and they're going to buy tickets to go watch him play in a Phillies uniform. If he's with the Nationals, maybe not the same type of outcome because people already have jerseys of Harper. They already have billboards of Harper. Maybe it's a different situation for the Nationals. Just they might sign him just to keep in contention. Phillies are getting a commodity. Phillies are getting a new ad campaign. Phillies are getting a new advertisement for ticket sales. With Harper comes more money. Not just signing him, but those jersey sales will be up if it goes to a new team, especially if it goes to the Phillies. And that's what I think the Phillies are mainly thinking about is not only are you getting one of the best players in baseball, you're getting a cash cow in Bryce Harper. But again, we still have no idea where Bryce is going to end up. Could be the Phillies. Could be the Nationals. Hell, it could be a team that we don't even talk about right now. So we have no idea where he's going to end up. It's still a huge mystery. But if I had to make a guess, by the time he signs, by this time next month, so let's just say February 16th, he will sign with a team. I hope. Because it's getting a little ridiculous now, how long it's taken. But we are going to take a short break. When we get back, we are going to talk about Manny Machado and his offer from the Chicago White Sox, and if that's what's best for him, or do you think he'll go to somewhere else? And we'll talk more about that when we return.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC podcast, sport baseball podcast. Like we were just talking about Bryce Harper, where he's going to end up. Like, we don't know what the number is going to be. We know that he was signed. He was offered Nationals a 10-year, over $300 million contract, which means that the Phillies have to be better than that. But again, the Phillies are still what everyone thinks is the front runner for them, because if Harper wanted to be with the Nationals, he would have signed with them with that 10-year contract already. But moving on, we have Manny Machado talks now, because with the Phillies now favored to get Bryce Harper, the White Sox are chomping at the bit to get Manny Machado, because if Harper does sign with the Phillies, they might not have the power, they might not have the resources to get a Machado as well, because that's a huge two-person contract for sure. But Machado this past month has visited 3 teams. He's visited White Sox, Phillies, and Yankees. And with the Yankees signing that shortstop from Toronto in Troy, in Troy, I was right about that. Troy Tulowitzki, that is. I'm not sure if that was them thinking that's an insurance policy for a shortstop in case they don't get Machado or what, but it's one of these things in where you can never discount the New York Yankees. They are the evil empire. They are going to buy anyone they can. Luxury tax be damned. And it's never leave them out. But it still looks like the White Sox are the favorite to get Machado. He is offered an 8-year contract. Unknown at this time what the actual price is, but the word is it's around over $250 million, which I think is a little low. If it's around 250, that seems a little low for everyone what they're thinking about Machado, like I said before in the previous segment. And I just see him getting at least 300. Like Harper. Because of the fact that he's offered $250 million on a max, not a max deal, but you know what I mean. It's one of these things where is he worth it? And, of course, he's worth it. He's a superstar. Or you can even consider him a star. He's a great shortstop. Top shortstop in the league. No questions about it. But when you look at this, there's so much still. Like, Machado is quiet. We don't know what he thinks of the 8-year deal from Chicago. And if he goes back to the American League after leaving the Orioles to go to the Dodgers in that World Series appearance, where he kind of struggled in the World Series against the Red Sox after they got crushed. But again, that Red Sox team was 108 wins, considered one of the greatest teams of all time. So it's hard to deny like a struggle against a dominant team like the Red Sox were this year. But Machado, between the White Sox, Phillies, and the Yankees, the 3 teams he has visited in the past month, it looks like the Phillies might be out of the question because of the fact they might sign Harper to a massive deal, and they might not have enough, like I said, to get Machado. So now we're down to the Yankees, and we're down to the White Sox. Now, if the White Sox do get Machado, the question remains, how will this team be going into next season? I mean, it's a lot to think about because if you're looking at the previous the previous year, this previous season that's happened, it's just the White Sox were not in the playoffs. They didn't make the playoffs. Does this put them in playoff contention with Machado? Possibly. It's definitely a great possibility. But let's look at the White Sox roster. Statistics from the 2018 season, there is not one player with at least, let's go with 100 at-bats. We can go even more, huh? We can go with 100, or let's go at least like 300 at-bats. No one surpassed 300 batting average. There's 275. There's Jose Berry got 265. Tim Anderson hit 240. The shortstop for the White Sox. So you look at the shortstop, Tim Anderson for the White Sox. He had a 240 batting average, slugging in 406, which ain't not that bad, and he hit 20 home runs. He had and 64 RBIs. He had a pretty decent season, all things considered, with his 606 plate appearances. He did pretty well for himself, all things considered, but Machado is just an upgrade regardless who it is. He had 136 hits, 28 doubles, so he had a pretty decent season, all things considered. But it's one of these things in where a 240 batting average, Manny Machado, who's above that, had a better season and is just a better player, just in comparison. It just looks like the fact that this White Sox team, however, need a big signing in Machado. If they get Machado, they will be huge. They had 100 losses last season. I think that's a huge number to think about. 100 losses is a bad record. They weren't even last in their division. In the Central, unfortunately, they had the Royals in their division who had 104 losses themselves. But you got to look at the fact that Machado, how much would he be a factor in changing this team's record around? Can he get them to the playoffs himself? We really don't know. When you're looking at, because they also have problems with pitching. I mean, a lot of these pitchers, because of 100 losses, you can't expect a lot of elite pitching, you know what I mean? So, I mean, their number one pitcher, James Shields, had a 4.53 ERA, and that's not what you want from your number one pitcher, from your first pitcher in the rotation. And it was obviously a big struggle for this team. And I mean, when your James Shields went 7-16, and Lopez went 7-10, Lucas went 23-10. That was their bet. Or I'm sorry, 10-13. He had 23. He was age 23. Thank you, statistics, for showing me that. Well, they just randomly showed me 23 and then went 10-13. And then their closers. Their closer had 16 saves this season. Not bad, but you want more out of your pitcher than just 16 saves. And it's just this team was bad. I don't really know how else to explain this. And there was a lot of struggle. The overall team ERA combined was 4.84. It's not good. Not good at all. And not one player pitched a shutout. Not one. That is amazing. When you have no one on your team shut out anybody in a 162-game season, that is a cause for concern. And Machado obviously can help with that, but Machado can help on the offensive end of the ball of the pitching and get those hits and get those runs in, so maybe you don't need a shutout. And he's not a bad defensive shortstop either, so he could save some shutouts himself. Who knows what's going to happen if the White Sox sign him. But they still need a lot of help. I mean, that is the most staggering statistic I've seen. No shutouts in an entire season, not one pitcher threw a shutout. And when your number one pitcher wins only 7 games, that's a struggle. And lost 16 of them. If he was 16 wins, 7 losses, I'll say that's a great season. But 16 losses for your number one pitcher, James Shields? I'm sorry, that is not acceptable to me. I know he's 37. I know he's up there in age. But come on. He might have to call it a career with that kind of statistics. He only had he finished 1 game. He didn't have 1 complete game. Not one starting pitcher had a complete game. That's baffling. And James Shields, their number one pitcher, gave up 103 earned runs. It's remarkable to me. And that is a lingering statistic that I think they should definitely be curious about. I know there's not like an elite pitcher that's available. Like maybe like there's talk about Madison Bumgarner being available in the trade market. Maybe they have to go for him. Maybe they have to go for a big trade somewhere. Who knows? But wow. Thank you, Bleacher Report. Bryce Harper loves Phillies manager Gabe Kapler. Really hit it off during the Vegas meeting. So I think that is a big deal when it comes to this. But going back to the White Sox, of course, with Machado in their lineup, they would definitely get a lot more hits and runs batted in, obviously. But there's still a lot of work needed to be done. Do I see them improving? Absolutely. You can totally improve from a 100-loss season. And, like, obviously, if they want to get a star like Machado, and it's just like with Bryce Harper and the Phillies, it's also bringing in revenue. It's also bringing jersey sales and all this. And in 2018, Machado had a better batting average than anyone on the White Sox with 297, more home runs, more RBIs, and it just shows in general he is he's a much needed talent. In all 3 major statistics, average, home runs, and RBIs, he beat every single White Sox. That's huge. If they add a 297 batting average, they add 37 home runs and 107 RBIs to their team, that helps. That crosses out at least maybe 20 losses. I know that's a lot of losses, but they would still get what they can have like an 50-50 500 season. With that much help on the offensive side, they could boost into a wild card spot and play in that one wild card game situation where everyone is still complaining how ridiculous it is. And I don't really blame them. It's kind of a really after 160, you're playing basically a 163 game season due to that factor. But again, that's how I think about it. We are going to take a short break. When we get back, we will talk about the Hall of Fame voting that's been going on, and by the public at least, and who's leading in the votes, who's not, who's surprising, who's not surprising. We'll see that when we return.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We just talked about Manny Machado and the Chicago White Sox and how he would improve that team. And also during that, I got word that, thanks to Bleacher Report, obviously, that the Red Sox will be visiting Donald Trump at the White House on February 15th. So they might be getting burgers and fries and tacos and pizzas. Who knows what's going to happen? Probably not Taco Bell, but it was I saw pizza there. There was definitely Burger King. There was definitely McDonald's. There was definitely Wendy's. And honestly, I think that's pretty delicious myself. But I'm on a diet, so I'm trying to get on a juice cleanse. Well, I'm not getting in my personal life. Anyways, it's one of these things in where we'll see if Donald Trump feeds him fast food again. He kind of got backlash, but I don't think he cares. But anyways, that's the least of his concerns. Now we have the public ballots in the Hall of Fame voting. So, in a shocking, I'm using quotes, turn of events, Mariano Rivera is the leader in the voting in public with 100% of the votes. Everyone has voted for Mariano Rivera to be in the Hall of Fame. And it makes sense since he's the all-time saves leader and considered one of the greatest closers, if not the greatest closer of all time. No, and when you also look at the fact that he's just everyone knows who he is. Just Mario Rivera is the Sandman. He went and entered Sandman, and he entered the game with Enter Sandman, and he's a legendary figure, no question about it. And he helped the Yankees to 3 straight World Series and more in a World Series in 2009. And he's just an absolute beast when he has the game closed. So 100% does not surprise me. And it should not surprise anybody, actually. And then at 94.3%, we have Roy Halladay, who passed away, I believe it was last year, in a airplane accident. I will double-check that, though. But I remember he did pass away. And he was a great player, no questions asked. He threw that no-hitter with the Phillies during the he died in 2017, not last year. He died in 2017. But he did throw that no-hitter, I believe it was the 2010 postseason in the DS. And he was a 2-time Cy Young winner. He was the leader in wins for a pitcher in 2 different years, 2003 and 2010. Both years he won the Cy Young Award. 8-time All-Star. He pitched a perfect game. He pitched a postseason no-hitter, like I said, in 2010. So in one season, he had the Cy Young winner, wins leader, threw a perfect game, and a postseason no-hitter all in the same year. And he did get his number retired by the Toronto Blue Jays, because that's where he started in 1998. And he did pass away on November 7th, 2017. It was an aircraft he was piloting crashed in the Gulf of Mexico, which is a tragedy. And still a very iconic player based off his dominance at the pitching in 2010, mainly. Well, just with the Phillies, he was just dominant. No one could stop him. And looking at this, I can definitely see why he's gotten over 94% of the vote. It just makes sense. As for Edgar Martinez is the next on the list with 90.3%. Edgar Martinez was a very popular player on the Mariners during their dominance with Ken Griffey Jr. And I believe he was on their 2001 team when they had 111 wins, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm not mistaken, he was on that team. He was on that team from 1987 to 2004. He played for a long time. 7-time All-Star, 5-time Silver Slugger, 2-time AL batting champion. He was the RBI leader in 2000. Got his number retired, obviously. And he was the face of that franchise for a long period of time. I mean, his nickname was Poppy before Big Poppy. He was Poppy before Big Poppy. So he was a DH also. And so he was mainly just on the plate, just knocking him out of the park type of thing. But yes, he is a great player in his day, definitely worthy of the Hall of Fame. And the fans agree because the popular public vote is that. And like I said, he was on the 2001 Seattle Mariners team that had 116 wins. And that's tying the Major League record with the 1906 Cubs. And that's just insane to think about. Unfortunately, he never won a World Series with the Mariners. They had that 116-win season, but lost to the Yankees in, I believe it was the ALCS, if I'm not mistaken. It was the DS. No, it wasn't. I'm wrong. That was the CS. They lost in 5 in the CS to the Yankees. They won only one game that series, which is really disappointing from a season like that. And if they won that for the only game they won, they beat the Yankees. They beat them by a score of 14-3. But the rest they lost by 2 runs or less, except for Game 5 where they lost 12-3. So it was a very disappointing way to end the season for one of the greatest post-regular season records of all time, tied with the greatest. So it's one of those things where he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame for what he's done in the regular season, but as for the postseason, there is a big hole in that. A big surprising that's actually not in the majority of the votes. At 74.3%, Curt Schilling is not in the most popular vote. Is not in the majority, which is insane to think about because of the fact he's one of the most legendary pitchers of this generation. His iconic pitcher when the Red Sox, when he had that bloody sock after his, I believe it was an Achilles surgery, when his socks seeped with blood from the stitches. That's iconic. And, of course, his amazing pitching with the 2001 Diamondbacks when they beat the Yankees in the World Series. Him and Randy Johnson both got co-MVP for their World Series pitching performances. And he's won multiple World Series and all this stuff, and he's still not a majority. I'm actually shocked by that. I thought he was the first ballot Hall of Famer, personally. But it looks like the public doesn't agree. But, again, it's not. We'll see what happens outside the public voting. And still outside looking in of the majority of the votes, Barry Bonds is at 72.6%. Roger Clemens is at 73.1%. These two are the biggest question marks when it comes to do they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame due to their history. Well, Barry Bonds with his steroid history. Roger Clemens also has a steroid history. And you keep talking about the steroid era of baseball being one of the most popular eras in baseball because of how many power hitters there were and how exciting the games were. And when you talk about Barry Bonds, you get like a war brewing between people that say he's took steroids, he cheated, and he's like, well, he played in an era, steroids doesn't make you hit the ball in accuracy with the ball like he did and force him for intentional walks. And I understand both sides of it. Yes, steroids was illegal, but also the fact that it didn't help him it helped him with power, but it didn't help him hit the ball, help him time it, help him get that home run. It helped him get the power to hit the home run. I'm certain, sure, but with the timing and the accuracy of his hits, can't deny that. But it's one of those things in where there's always going to be two sides to it. And I'm not going to pick a side because of the fact that both sides are right in my opinion because they both bring up excellent points. So, should Barry Bonds be a Hall of Fame? That's not up to me. But from the voting perspective, it almost looks like she's almost there. He is in his 7th year of eligibility, and also they reduced it. The MLB reduced it from 15 to 10, or the MLB Hall of Fame voting reduced it from 15 years of eligibility to 10 years. So after this, he only has 8, 9, 10. So technically, he has 3 years left. 10th year will be his final year, and so he only has 3 more years really to be in the Hall of Fame. It doesn't look like this year is going to be the 7th time's the charm, but I think by 9 or 10, his final year or the year before his final year of eligibility to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, I can see it happening. If it doesn't, it doesn't, but there will be debate until he's no longer eligible. Maybe even after that. Until the end of this generation, basically, I think the debate of whether Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame or not will forever be in debate. It's just because this is one of those main controversies that's going to be going on for a long time. Same with Roger Clemens. Other notable Hall of Fame voting, just for other people, just for anyone else's curiosity. Manny Ramirez is eligible for the Hall of Fame at 25.7%. He's not close to the majority, but he still got voted 25%, still pretty good. Sammy Sosa, 13.7%. I don't see him making it. Gary Sheffield, 13.1%. I don't see him making it either. Multiple players with 0%. I feel bad for these guys, but what are you going to do? Jason Bay, 0%. Juan Pierre, 0%. Kevin Youkilis, 0%. Most of the notable ones, I got 0%. But there's also like Omar Vizquel, who got 36%. Billy Wagner got 15.4%. Probably one of the oldest ones, or not the oldest one, excuse me, just one of the most notable ones that's really low, 15.4%. But the top 3 are Rivera, Holiday, and Martinez, who will probably enter the Hall of Fame this year. I think Mariano Rivera's no question getting in the Hall of Fame. That one's an easy yes for me. But also, it's an exciting time. I always enjoy looking at the Hall of Fame and saying like who deserves to go where, who deserves to do this or that. It's always a interesting subject because the Hall of Fame is one of those things in where like you're awarded for a legendary career. And there will always be doubters of who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But I don't think Mariano Rivera will ever be doubted as he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I think that will be the same when Derek Jeter's eligible for the Hall of Fame. I'm just talking about Yankees in general. If Alex Rodriguez, he will be just like Barry Bonds. Very questionable if he makes a Hall of Fame or not. Just like Barry Bonds, just like Roger Clemens. And if we're looking at just at today's players, Bryce Harper's probably a Hall of Famer. I think if he wins a World Series, it's a no-doubter. But we will see. Because accomplishments in championships are the most crucial things. He has a lot of regular season accomplishments. Postseason, not so much. Same with Manny Machado. But you look at the fact that, like, who's still playing today? Buster Posey and Madison Bumgarner, they won World Series championships. Are they in the Hall of Fame? Probably. And you're looking at the Boston Red Sox, like when Big Papi, David Ortiz, is eligible. He's no doubt in the Hall of Fame. And you look at like the recent MVP, Betts. Does he make the Hall of Fame? Who knows? He won a World Series and he won an MVP in the same year. Very well could have been him. But we don't know. When we're in the era of this current generation, we really don't know who's that guy's. We're witnessing a Hall of Famer. We only know that by the time it's like the end of their career, if that makes sense. That's just how I mainly see it. But right now, I do see the fact that we're in an era in where steroids is no longer that much of an issue as it used to be, an epidemic at least. But again, we will see how each player in today's game will end in the Hall of Fame. There's going to be some. We're witnessing some, definitely. But as for the current Hall of Fame ballots, I think they're pretty accurate. Mariano Rivera being 100% is no doubt to me. Edgar Martinez, I definitely see in the Hall of Fame. And, yeah, that's just how things go. But we will take a short break once again. When we come back for the final segment, we'll talk about anything else that needs to be discussed when it comes to baseball. We'll be right back right after this.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome back to the final segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We just talked about the Hall of Fame voting, the public voting, that is, and Machado and Harper. Now we're going to move on to a little more depressing news. John Wetland, a former World Series MVP in 1996 for the New York Yankees against the Atlanta Braves, who had to be the butt of the joke when it came to the 90s against the Yankees in the World Series, that is. He has been charged with sex child abuse on a child under 14, and it's a real shame to see that happen to a child, especially to a. It was in Texas, and he was in the Hall of Fame for the Texas Rangers Hall of Fame, so it is it's disgraceful that he's been accused of this. It's wrong. He was totally in the wrong. There's no excuse for what he has done. He's 52 years old, and he was sexually abusing a child under the age of 14. He did post his $25,000 bond when he was arrested, but I'm sorry, this is wrong on so many levels, and it's sickening. And I don't know what this outcome is going to happen, but it's been all over the news just based off his history of baseball. And it really makes you sick. It really does, because there's no excuse for abusing a child sexually. You're 52 years old, dude. And that's not how it's supposed to be. That's just wrong. And the adults who looked up to you or saw you as one of their favorite players on the Rangers or on the Yankees when you won the MVP in the World Series, it tarnishes your career, and you deserve to have your career tarnished because there's no excuse for what you've done. And it's just not right. Honestly, it's a bad reputation. You don't, and what you did, you don't deserve sympathy for what you've done. If all this has happened, this is just wrong on all levels. But I'm not going to give him any more time to get talked about, because he's been on the news a lot for this, and I don't think he deserves any more talking about. But whatever. Anyways, when you're looking in the baseball season, and let's just we're all guessing what else is going to happen in this off season. But if I may predict what will happen, I'm going to guess the wins and loss record for the Phillies and the White Sox on who will be the better team with the signing of either Harper or the signing of Machado. If the Phillies, or the White Sox, get Machado, and I said they could add 20 wins, 82-80 is the best record I can see out of the White Sox adding Machado. I say a 20-win difference is the best they can do, and that's a lot. Don't get me wrong, that's a lot of wins. But Machado's that special player, and his statistics outshine everyone on the White Sox, and I think that could boost them totally, no questions asked. As for the Phillies and Harper, they can only go up from here. And for the Phillies last year, they were pretty good, all things considered. They were 80 and 82. I mean, not great, but still positive. So they can go above 500 with Harper, no question. I know last year with the Nationals, Harper did go 82 and 80, so it wasn't that big of a jump. But I could see 85 to 90 wins with the addition of Harper. I feel like that would just boost the team. When you get someone like that, it just makes your team better. It's like signing LeBron James or, someone like that with a playmaker that's a difference maker in a sport. And sometimes one guy just makes everybody else better. And if Harper signs with the Phillies, I think that'll give the Phillies confidence that we can make a run here. So I can see 85 to 90 wins for the Phillies if they sign Harper. And do I see them either one making the playoffs? Not the first year. I honestly don't. But I'm not saying it's out of the question. I'm not going to rule them out entirely. But it's just the NL East is so competitive. The Braves were 90-win season compared to the Nationals' 82 wins, who were second best. Can they take the NL East? Can the Braves make a drop and the Phillies can take over for Harper? Absolutely. I don't see why not. But as for the White Sox in the AL Central, they, of course, had a way worse record with 62 and 100. And they're in the same division as the Indians, who are a powerhouse, to say the least. I don't see them actually getting close to winning the Central. The best I can see is definitely just fluke wild card. No, maybe not even fluke, just wild card in general. It's the Central. We've talked about this on the podcast, how the AL Central is one of the worst divisions in the league. I mean, you just look at it. The Indians are 91 and 71. The second best is the Twins at 78 and 84. Two over 100 lost teams, 100 or more lost teams. The White Sox 100 and Royals 104. Tigers had 98 losses, so almost three teams 100 wins, 100 losses or more. So obviously this division is weak, and with Machado, that could be right for the picking for the White Sox. Do I see them overtaking the Indians? Like I said, no, but definitely a wild card opportunity for them. But that is all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Please tune us in for our other podcasts tomorrow, such as sports, football, and soccer. We also do a fantasy football on Fridays and Mondays, and we also do sports every single day. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow, or hopefully next week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.